welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vass. You can find me on X at #Kangas, Instagram #Kangaroos Podcast. Tonight, I welcome back the boys, Jesse Cardinal and Mark. Hello, boys. Welcome. And tonight, Mark, I'm going to start with you. We've had a fair bit of news the last few days, and we're going to go through it. We already started on a bit of a rant before we got on air, but let's go back to the media. Kane Cornes has been in the media the last couple of days. The club have come out, Todd Viney, and saying it's not good enough, referencing Sheezy ball, just getting kicks that do nothing, basically. Jai Simpkins sledging Jason Horne-Francis into a meltdown during the third quarter. We know who Kane Cornes is, and this is who he is, and he just likes to stir the pot for clicks and clickbait and so forth. Mark, should we be giving it noise as a club?
Well, I think it probably goes even some ways it goes beyond footy and to this whole Americanization or Donald Trumpisms of giving people, trying to dominate people by giving them crappy nicknames. So Sleepy Joe Biden or Sloppy Joe, whatever it might be. It's just I just think it's juvenile bullying type behaviour. I agree with the comments that Viney made. You can say why can't, of course he left out the fact his own Port Adelaide captain's been playing off the half-back flank
spot on.
For the last 5 or 6 weeks. He obviously doesn't have any issue with that. And I wouldn't have a real problem with him saying he'd like to see Shizzle get back to what he was doing for most of last year and winning a lot more of the ball forward, in the forward half and being a bit more destructive like that. But the fact it came straight after the Port Adelaide game, straight after we got stuck into Jason Horne-Francis, and he said people should be keeping their mouths shut because we haven't been winning games. So we have to be timid now because we've been losing, it's absolutely pathetic the way he's carrying on. And to try and bully Sheezel and try to humiliate him publicly because he was upset because Jason Horne-Francis copped a bit of flack, I thought it was embarrassing for him. And he's now trying to come back and say, I don't want to apologise, but I just want to say that I think Sheezel's going to be a great player. It's a bit late for all that now. It's just, I thought it was pitiful. And I think Sheezel, as usual, handled himself with class. I'm glad Viney and the club finally came out and said we've had enough of him. The constant North bashing from him, it's just pathetic. He's going after a small club. Love to see him bashing a Collingwood or a big club that would put him at risk in terms of his media thing. It's a typical shock jock behaviour type stuff which don't want to be vanilla. I've got to have a massive opinion, but it's easy to have a massive opinion about someone with a small supporter base because they can't really do much. They're pretty defenceless. So I just find it cowardly. I just don't like it, and I think he was it's backfired on him because he was the wrong personality to go after. Because he's such a class act himself, Sheezel doesn't have a bad word to say about anyone. And is gracious enough to just to let it go through to the keeper without fight. Imagine if Sheezel came back and started giving Canes, the fireman and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, this sort of stuff can just descent into pathetic schoolyard sort of crap, which I don't think I can't imagine Sonia Hood doing it. If it was Jeff Kennett, he would have come slamming back at Corns and probably would have made up a nickname for him. Some ways, I wouldn't mind. You wouldn't mind seeing it, but I'm glad. The club's better off taking the higher ground. But I'm glad Viney came out and said we're not going to be talking to the guy. I think that's good.
No, look, it did go too far. He's an easy target, Sheezel. He knows he's not going to say anything back because he's got too much class.
Yeah,
so,
correct.
Yeah, and the Simpkin thing, it got us a free kick. It got us a goal. Where they were in no danger. I think it was a Port Adelaide ball, and he knew how to stir him up. He just pushed him, and then he went after him. LDU gets a goal and almost turned the momentum of the game. He almost cost us some game, Jason Horne-Francis. For as good as he was, he almost got us back into that game in the third quarter.
So what's Kane Cornes going on about? He doesn't like it that a play got ruffled up. Like, when's he ever had an issue with that with any other team or any other player having that done to them?
I actually think the most embarrassing part about that was when, because I've got no issue with Jason Horne-Francis coming back at being like Simpkin knew how to rile him up. And to be fair, we're talking about two players who played in the Indigenous game together. They got on They took a lot of photos with each other. They seem to get on with one another. They like each other's Instagram posts. For all means, they probably get on decently well. I know there was a comment after the game, oh, there's no love lost. I actually think most of the players passed it, and most would just get on with business pretty normally. I think they rolled him up. He's a fiery character. He came back. To Dean's point, he almost cost them the game in some moments of insanity. I think the most embarrassing thing from Kane in defending him, though, was when Hinkley put him aside to talk to him, which that's what a coach should do. That's fine. And Horne-Francis went to walk away, and Butters and Rosie, who were the captain and vice captain, had to grab him to stop him going away. That's not a good look. Now, I thought there was a bit of a pile-on because he is young, an emotional player. Yes, he does a lot of good things. It's not a great look, but I think people piled on pretty hard. But then Corns come out and said, oh, he thought that Hinkley had stopped talking. It was like...
Oh, that was embarrassing.
No, that's more embarrassing than actually what Horne-Francis did, is the fact that you come out.
I don't even have an issue. I don't have a real issue with what Horne-Francis did. Yes, he lost control of himself and everything else. But that has nothing to do with Simpkin. It has nothing to do with Sheasel. Focus on the issue. Stop deflecting back to North. You barely got it. They limped over the line by 8 points. You'd think they'd won the flag the way Corns is going on.
Well, he did make a comment and said, oh, well, actually, Port Adelaide smashed North Melbourne statistically, so it wasn't really a close game. He made a comment along those lines.
Oh, that's even more. That's embarrassing again.
And that's despite the fact that the expected score actually had us winning the game.
I thought, to be honest with you, I mean, we'll talk about the game, but to be honest with you, that was the best performance I've seen from North for the last 5 years, purely because we looked like we were going to lose by 15 goals at quarter time. And they absolutely didn't take a backward step from that moment on. When it looked like, to me, it looked like the white flag was up. Here we go. Red time goals again. They're going to drop their heads. Their confidence is shot. It's going to blow out. I thought it was going to be a disaster. Especially in Adelaide. In Adelaide, of all places, it's a hostile environment. We've never won there. We're 5 goals down. It looked like just the same old. And they came out and they did not take a backward step from that moment on. And they kept that up right up to the final siren. So to me, that was the biggest step forward I've seen since this nightmare began, whenever it was. So, because that's the most fight I've seen out of them in any game since the rebuild started. So I just hope that's the line in the sand moment and it keeps going from here, because from an effort perspective anyway, at least. Because there's still work to do defensively. There's still work to do with balls going inside 50. There's still skill errors. But at least they didn't just cough the ball up after quarter time. And I thought the back line was so much better with Hardeman and Archer back there as well. So there was a lot of things to like out of the game, despite the fact we lost, I thought.
No, definitely. Any other thoughts on Kane Corns, Jesse?
Oh, I think I posted my thoughts a fair bit about it on X. To be honest, I've never liked him.
I've tried my best to not hate him, but it's almost become impossible.
No, I hate him. I hate him. I think he's a sensationalist. Yeah. He is an absolute burden on the game in terms of how he approaches it, to the point where he's been getting called out for over a month on every one of his platforms. Hodge keeps holding to account. Hodge is actually done
fatigue. Yeah, Hodge does a great job. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be Corns fatigue soon, because he's overexposed anyway, and he's trying so hard to be controversial, but he does it in a way that's narcissistic now, and it's ego based instead of hard hitting questions. That was just I'm a Port Adelaide supporter, so I'm going to get rip into North again. It's just
He's done a North segment on his Channel 7 show for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Every single time he's targeted us, to the point where, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, where Caroline Wilson has said, "You are bullying this football club. Stop."
That's right. Pre-season, he said, "North, the dark times are over for North. They're going to win 8 games." He did that deliberately.
Oh no, he was setting
to cover himself in case North had a good season. He was hoping like hell that they wouldn't. And as soon as they started losing, he was back to his let's get into Clarkson. Where the plan B for Sonia Hood's been. He brought that back up again.
He hates North Melbourne. He was integral part of getting Horne-Francis out of the club in terms of from day one he ran media every single week on SEN, run at about oh, Horn Francis going home, Horn Francis going home.
Yeah.
Why would you want to stay there?
Hashtag ice bath, the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, like he ran a whole campaign of getting him back, and then since then he's just shitted on the club.
Exactly. Someone explained to me what plan B Sonia Hood should have had. She should have brought in Clarkson and then had another coach waiting to take over. I mean, what is he talking about? Of course there was no plan B. They went all out to get a 4-time premiership coach. Why would she be looking at another coach outside of that? She got the person they wanted. No one in their right mind thought that was a bad decision to bring Clarkson to North Melbourne. And to be honest, as much as I've got frustrated lately with a bit of gaslighting to the supporters in the press conference, the reality is I doubt very, very much if he's lost his ability to coach. The players believe in what he's doing. We're not seeing enough of it on field yet, but I've probably been guilty of this as anyone of expecting too much too soon. And we might have to wait. It's going to probably, Gerard Whateley annoys me sometimes, but he did say North should be more likely to be judged in the back half of the last 7 or 8 rounds is probably when we're likely to start seeing where they're heading. And we probably expected too much too early in the year. And that's people like Corn saying the bark times are over, blah, blah, blah. But I honestly don't believe Clarkson's lost his ability to coach. I don't like the way he's communicating to the supporters in those, talking about little wins and stuff. And it's back to, I don't like that nourishment type talk. I think when supporters are expecting wins and don't want to hear any more about little wins and George Wardlaw played well, that was a great little win. And that just makes people angry. I wouldn't do that. I'd just say we weren't good enough. We've got plenty to work on and leave it at that. I don't think you need to patronise supporters in that way. But I don't think within the 4 walls he's doing the wrong thing. I think dropping the core and Logue had a good effect. I think that was finally brought some selection integrity back. And I think he's probably been a lot tougher on players internally than what we hear about, and things. So I think Viney sort of came out and probably, did the right thing and said just back off. So I do worry there's not enough support because he takes up too much of the soft cap. But we've got a good development coaching group there. So probably all need to be patient. But I don't think it's as far away as it seems anyway.
Well, we certainly hope not. We did have a tough month of football. Last week was a big improvement, but 3 weeks before
the Carlton game was disastrous. That was horrifically bad. That really was as bad as it gets.
Yeah, I'll make a comment on that because obviously I wasn't on the show last week, which is probably a good thing because I was very flat after the Carlton game. I sat there until maybe halfway through the third, and then I left. That is the most despondent I have been at a football game ever.
I think a lot of people felt like that.
Oh, it was just very evident. Like the umpiring was shocking, but parking that, it was that was the flattest I've been. I got home and I was about to rip my polo apart. I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this, and I'm not going to put my kids through this. But I have kids. They're not going to go for North because why would they? Honestly, I walked away from that game.
My 12-year-olds moved to Essendon, my wife's family's side of the. So how bad is that?
Well, I was about to say, do you blame him? But is it really any better?
Oh, well, it's just that.
Like if it was Hawthorn or Geelong, jump on the bandwagon. You'll be good for the next 5,000 years because that's how the system works. But I mean, I was pretty flat after that game. Even the Port game, I was doing other stuff I had it on in the background while I was doing stuff, and it wasn't really up until probably the second half that I stopped what I was doing and watched the game. I watched it all, but I was doing other stuff and ready to stop when I was ready to stop. So I mean that got me back over the line. Had we gone out again like we did against Carlton, I think that would have been the line through me for the year. I would have had enough at that point.
I mean, maybe I'm easily pleased, but I reckon my lowest ebb was quarter time in that Port Adelaide game. I was even more flat than I was Good Friday because I just thought there's no end to this. It's never going to turn around. And then they started to show that fight in the second quarter, and it continued on halftime. I mean, I was almost overjoyed I didn't care that we didn't win. I was just so happy that the players had showed that fight. So, which made me feel like, okay, the coach definitely hasn't lost the players. So,
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one though. I walked away from it happy, and then I kind of had supporters of other clubs who I'm friends, who I'm friends with, who are Collingwood supporters and stuff, and they were like, "But it's just another loss." And I'm like, I actually reflected on it, and I thought, you know what? Yes, it is another loss, and it's a little bit sad that I walked away from a loss happy.
No, I don't think so, because the direction we were started look at quarter time.
Yeah,
really
you got to take
like,
it all into account. Absolutely, you got to take it all into
if
account.
Larky had kicked straight, I think we would have won that game.
Even if you kick that goal in the last quarter.
Score. Yeah. Expected score had us win. Because the umpiring, a lot of people complaining about the bump at the Rioli Shepherd at the end. That's freaking irrelevant. We got 3 goals from 50. The one against Delir was not there. The umpiring was shocking both ways. Both ways. It was just terrible. Yeah. And the fact that they got a goal at the end, irrelevant for mine, because we got goals in there. So we did some things that made it wasn't. I mean, the reason I didn't care about the win or loss in that game is the attitude of the players. To me, felt like we've had a gutful of this. That's enough. We're not going to just lie down again. There was some fight.
Parker and Simpkin and a number of them said, "Fuck this. We're not going to just fucking be bullied anymore." Even though they were in Adelaide with a hostile crowd, they went all in, and it worked. That's the thing. They turned the game around. It actually worked. And it made me feel like, which is true, and Buckley talks about system more than talent's more important and stuff like that. It's like the penny dropped a little bit for the players that talent's not going to be enough. We're going to have to start working for each other aggressively and defensively, or this won't turn around. It's like I don't know how it changed at quarter time, but they were completely like a different club came back out after that. So regardless of the result, that's why I was happy, because I haven't seen that for 5-6 years. Even in the Collingwood game last year where we played scintillating football for that first half, that was just everyone was on and it was great offensive footy. It wasn't gritty in any way. And then we caved and they came back from all that way down and beat us. But this game really showed grit you talk about shinbone of spirit. That's the first time I've seen that I can remember. So I can't remember another game like that, in recent times. So
I think the last time I saw that level of fight was in the probably the Reece Shaw days when he was when he took over from Brad Scott in that season, and we beat like Richmond and stuff at the back end of the year, and you had Zohar laying 11 tackles, and there was this real grit about us. That's probably so. It's probably been 6 years since. I completely agree with you, Mark.
We looked hard to play against. It looked like it wasn't easy for them. That was it. Port Adelaide didn't like it. They didn't like it either. Well, hold on, this was going to be easy. What's going on?
Well, they were panicking with the ball.
Yeah, they were. And by the way, their pressure level was elite for that game.
200.
Yeah, 200 plus.
So
199 for the match. Yeah.
So they didn't lie down. They went hard as they could, and we held up against that. That's what I'm excited about. That the players go, actually, we can handle that level of pressure. We'll just we can give it back and stay in the game. So I hope they've got a lot of confidence out of it. And and even Viney coming out today, and there's a bit of fuck this. We're not going to lie down anymore. Like, we're not going to just let Corns make these comments and just let it slide.
Well, I think that kind of had to come out and show some fight, because they also at the same time copped a ridiculous amount of backlash for not appealing the decision.
I think Sonia Hood, as much as I respect her, I think she's going to have to start being a bit more strong.
Well, it should be her coming out and making a lot of these comments.
It can't just be Todd Viney all the time. I think
it's usually a chairman or a CEO. It's not your head of football. Head of football comes out. Well, how often do you hear? Who is the head of football? Half the other clubs?
It doesn't. I'm not being sexist. It doesn't need to be a male that comes out to protect the club. It can be the CEO or the president, who are both females. I'm more than happy for them to come out and do it, but they do need to do it. As if Jeff Kennett or Eddie Maguire or any number of presidents would just let their club be stomped on. So it's great. It's great Viney spoke, but more of them the leaders and the board and those members need to come out and go, we're not going to be pushed around anymore, just as the players showed that on the weekend. So, look, that said, I'm glad Viney's done it. And look, Corns is probably happy. It's more bloody publicity for him and whatever else. And people can say, that's what he loves, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, whatever. Come out and protect, and say, look, that's fine, but don't ask us for an interview. You're not talking to anyone at the club here again. And I hope David King gets stuck into him tomorrow. He probably loves it too. He's probably good ratings for the show tomorrow morning. That's fine. But I hope we back it up tomorrow night. Win or lose, I hope we get right in the face of the Essendon players and go hard just like that again. I mean, Hawthorn turned their season around last year, won by it wasn't. That was the Essendon edge, wasn't it? That was nonsense. But the Hawthorn, that was embarrassing. But
you're about to make a comment, and I think it is absolutely spot on.
But Hawthorn did it last year. They started getting in the face of everyone they were playing against. They were getting arrogant and cocky. And as much as that was annoying people, it worked.
Oh, of course it worked.
And it certainly wouldn't have annoyed their supporters, and it won't annoy ours if our players start to do the same thing. As long as you back it up.
I think something that, just on your point, that was really important comment after our loss to Carlton was, I think it was Buddy talking with, he does a podcast, Buddy and one of the Hawthorn players, I think, and they were talking about Clarko and that situation, etc.
I haven't heard that. It's not as big as our podcast, so it probably
doesn't. No. It's little Buddy Franklin. You might have heard of it, but they made a comment about North playing unsociable football, and that being what Hawthorn really built themselves around was pushing that line. Now we probably have pushed the line, and now we've got a 3-week suspension, and we'll probably, knowing us and our luck, we'll push the line and we end up with someone else getting a 3-weeker. But as crap as that is, I 100% agree. If you're going to go out losing with some fight.
Yeah.
Hurt the opposition, make them nervous when they've got the ball. That's not hard to do. It is not hard to play with aggression and apply pressure.
I'd rather be hated than laughed at the moment. Well, I'm sick of being laughed at. I'm sick of this irrelevant blah, blah, blah crap that you get from all the trolls on social media. But from a player's perspective, if you're going to go down, as you said, I quite agree, go down being nasty to play against, like the pains in the ass, were sore after the game. They don't give up. You think you've got them beaten, they don't give up. They keep coming at you. Like, all of those things are what are going to make supporters happy, right? As the wins are hard to come by for a while, those are the things. It's not George Wardlaw getting 25 possessions and playing well. The little wins that Clarkson talks about. Supporters love Wardlaw, and don't get me wrong. I think he's my favourite player at the moment, apart from Finbar, of course. But he's my favourite player to watch, like Archer, because you know the level of effort you're getting. But that's not a little win. It's when they do it collectively, aggressively. That's the little wins. It's not one player kicking 3 great goals. It's the whole side having an absolute crack, even though they go down. Yes, Larky didn't kick straight. It'll probably cost us the game. Yes, we'll still make some skill errors. You'll let that go if they're just ferocious. And by ferocious, not just about tackles or going hard at the ball. It's defending aggressively. It's running back when we lose possession of the ball. Instead of just letting them walk it into our back line and leaving our back line completely exposed every week. That's what gets supporters down. Oh, we've turned it over. Oh, we've just given up and let them walk it into goal. That's what kills you when it walk. And in our forward line, that was the best I've seen our forward line keep the ball in with defensive pressure. I haven't seen that for years. I mean, Dean, we've been talking about that on the podcast for probably 7 years now, or since you started doing it. And that was
4 years.
4 years. 4 years. Sorry. That's the best I've seen us really fight hard to keep the ball in our forward line in that last 3 quarters.
I think, you sort of go back to last year's game against Melbourne, where we were very unsociable. Will Phillips and Clayton Oliver, and we were quite happy with that. We were unsociable. Everyone was getting in each other's face, and we stood up to they were trying to bully us, and we stood up to them. We just don't see it often enough. Hopefully, last week we turned the corner a little bit. Speaking of positive news, Jesse, the Paul Curtis suspension, obviously it was a vicious act, very malicious. Trying to give him a concussion, there's no doubt about that, throwing his head into the turf. Obviously very happy with that decision, only to get 3 weeks. Oh, yeah, it should have been 10. There is a part of me, and I know I'm being a little bit facetious, but there is a part of me that says the game is a bit dead. This has caused so much uproar and unified uproar from
all the playing group. The AFLPA's come out and slammed it. You've got coaches from other clubs who are confused. The media, ex-players are so confused what the hell's going on. Look, people were right. Had it come out and it was a week, a lot of us would have argued with it still and wouldn't have been happy, because I personally don't think that that's a suspension. That's just me personally. Yeah. But I can also see the point of view, which is, look, if you do something and someone becomes concussed based on, because of your actions, just the same as if you accidentally hurt someone in public, you face repercussions. So there's a part of me that goes, well, if it had been a week, okay, bad luck, but he did get concussed. Learn from it, move on. The fact that the system does not allow you to have any grading, it's 0 or 3, and there's nothing in between. There was no possibility of downgrading this to a 2 or a 1 weeker, and which we actually tried to do. If you read what we did as part of the thing, we argued for it to be reduced. And so there was a part of us, which I liked that approach, that said, yeah, look, we know based on how the system's written that we probably can't get this overturned, but we want to get this reduced. And the fact that we couldn't is a disgrace. The fact that we didn't appeal it, in my mind, is a disgrace, regardless of, I don't care who the lawyers are saying it's not going to happen. Just do it anyway. I understand it costs money. You've got to get a lawyer, you've got to go there, you've got to do all of this stuff. I understand that. But you've got to fight the fight. You're going to lose, but you've got to fight the fight. What's just because it's really frustrating. You probably don't want to distract, and I understand all of that.
I think it's getting too close to the game. I think it would have become
a distraction. Yeah. Forget about this game against Essendon.
They know it's not going to get overturned now.
2 of our next 3 games are games that we probably targeted at the start of the year as games that we could win.
The issue
we're without our best player.
The issue is the word careless. So, just putting aside the whole stupid grading system and how bad it is, the mess of 0 or 3.
Laura Payne coming out and she slept on it. Maybe we should have a grading system.
The 0 or 3 is embarrassing. I don't think there's anyone with a half a brain who can disagree with that. That at worst it should have been a week. But the problem I have with it beyond that is even with a week, I might have gone, would have rolled my eyes and gone ridiculous. But the issue I've got with the whole thing is there's apart from, you can say someone's gone in, run past the ball and bumped someone, but they didn't try to knock them out. They were just trying to do whatever. But there's still a bit of intent there, which is careless. Like you've run past the ball and taken someone high with your shoulder, knocked them out. Like what happened to Simpkin, right? That's a vicious, nasty incident. Was it Webster, the St Kilda player, that did that? Now that's that one. You go, yeah, you deserve everything you get. Like you could wreck a player's career doing something like that. The football action of running someone down, there's literally there's no careless intent in that. How do you call that careless? That's the part I can't get my head around.
I don't know how you could execute that tackle. I think Eddie Maguire showed this. It was 1/3 of a second he had to act. That's the whole thing that happened.
No one running at that speed. No one running at that speed with the intention of catching someone and tackling them can start. Otherwise, you're basically saying you're not allowed to tackle from behind. That's you can't run someone down.
There was 4 or 5 other tackles on the weekend. Like Harley Reid got done with one and then there was, and then Harry Mackay got a free kick.
So it's either applauded and you get a free kick, or it's whoops, he dropped his head and he fell on the ground. Now you've got to sit out for 3 weeks. It's mad.
It means every single time now that because players aren't going to stop doing that because it is part of the game. So it just means that now, if the player is accidentally, because it's not kept, if the player is accidentally knocked out in a football act, because it was a football act, there was nothing wrong he did. It was absolute rubbish.
So what if you take mark of the year now and you knock someone out with your knee?
Well, I think that is the only thing that's left.
Well, why leave that? Why leave that as well? That's risking someone getting concussed. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you might as well take out every.
You open up a can of worms, yeah.
It is. They've opened up a can of worms. Now they're saying no accidents are allowed. You can't make. There's no such thing as an accident.
I will be shocked if I will be shocked at some point over the next 5 weeks if the system isn't altered as a result of this. Doesn't help us at all. It's
No.
not going to help us
It'll
at
be
all.
fixed on Monday. Don't worry, Jesse.
But based on Laura Kane's comments of, well, you know what, maybe if it looks like this type of incident, it shouldn't be 3 weeks. Well, and I think the backlash the AFL is going to cop, I think they'll change it. My understanding is, and I heard this from a couple of people, was that we did have a discussion, that Laura Kane did have a discussion with the club last night and said pretty much if you appeal this, that you'll be open to litigation. I've heard that from a few people.
Who's sorry for my pathetic memory. Nick Rewald's ex-teammate who came out and did that interview with Hamish. Channel
Justin
7.
Kaczynski.
Yeah, so I think the timing around that and this happening and this whole issue, it just keeps building the pressure on. So he's basically saying, "I've got CTI." Is it CTI? Is that the correct terminology?
What is it? Yeah,
CTE or CTI?
Yeah, I think it's CTE actually, isn't it? Or
CTE, yeah.
Or something like that. I can't remember.
But
Like,
basically,
Jesse's
he's
gonna
saying
look
he's pretty certain he's got it. And it's that was a horrific story to listen to.
Yeah, CTA.
But,
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
CTE. Okay. And CTE is a horrific thing to
horrible.
end up with. And look, Kaczynski
Mm.
might well have that. But that drew a lot of publicity last week. And then the next week, someone has a chase down, tackle, guys concussed, and bang, they're out for 3 weeks. And they go to tribunal, it still stays at 3. I think they're just so terrified, the AFL now, that they're just going to go, they're almost panicking. That's what it feels like. So I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't have helped the timing around that, by the way. So
I think it will be adjusted. So there is still a suspension.
yeah, it's gone too far. They would have to say they're not. Then like a week, they go, okay, a week sends a warning. You've got to be really careful. 3 weeks is saying, oh, you're not allowed to tackle people from behind anymore.
Yeah. So again, it doesn't help us at all because we haven't appealed it and we're not going to run a gauntlet. But which I think we still should have. But
I won't
be
jump to
shocked if this
selection,
can
but
change.
gee, that leaves a hole in our side in terms of pressure in the forward line.
Oh, David King is spot on. He is our best player.
Oh, definitely.
been issued,
He is the second. I think him and Jack Higgins are the only players who have kicked 2 goals or more in every single game.
He's
So-
he's winning the ball in our back line. He has
Yeah.
become
It's still
he's
early.
become an absolute superstar.
Him
And
and, right now, if there was an All-Australian team, him and Jack Higgins are the 2 small forwards.
yeah.
Lock. And then probably Ben Long is probably around the mark. But those 2 are the starting on the field,
Funny
2
that-
small forwards.
They're both super strong as well, both he and Higgins. Actually, they're
Yeah, different types, but they're both.
Yeah.
But they're both quite. Yeah, able to take a good mark as well.
It
It's
leaves-
a massive hole. Massive hole.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've filled that hole either with selection. So I'm not sure what the plan's going to be because it just Zerha's going to have to absolutely step up
Stop being lazy.
tomorrow night. Yes, absolutely stop being lazy.
The bull has to stop being so much of a cow and become more of a bull. He's got to show some fight. Got to do something.
Yeah, we need to renegotiate with him on that massive contract he's on. I'm being facetious, but
There should be a clause in his contract that if he doesn't lay at least 5 bone crunching tackles a week, he can be sacked.
yeah, he's one who needs to
Do something.
lead from that perspective because he can be a real barometer when he's on. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Talking the Melbourne game last year, like he needs
It's
to.
too
He
far.
needs to.
And, it's too
Yeah.
far. And,
I reckon they'll be pointing the leaders of the playing group and the leaders should be pointing at him this week, going, "We need something special this tomorrow night." And it's he loves Marvel, so someone called. Oh no, it was Dwayne Russell was calling him the king of Marvel at one stage. That's probably an exaggeration, but
I don't really know if he's the dunce of
a
Marvel.
gross exaggeration. But he needs to turn it on tomorrow night if we're going to be a chance. I think.
Well, I might as well go to team changes in. We'll go straight to that. Yeah, well, we'll talk about them in a sec, Mark. No Wardlaw, short break. I think he had a cork thigh, so he misses,
It makes
unfortunately.
sense. It
I
sucks,
think that's
but it makes
managed.
sense.
That's they're managing him. I don't believe.
Yeah,
it's
I
got
think
a
it is.
short
Yeah,
side.
no, I think so. Paul Curtis, obviously the suspension.
Nightmare.
And the big one and the big shock, apparently this guy that can't get dropped, Darcy Tucker, after a big zero possession game last week, tagging Rosie, omitted.
He can still be a late in. He can still be a
It
late
was
in.
emergency, so he's not far off.
God.
Into the team come Will Phillips for Georgie Wardlaw. Bailey Scott comes in for Paul Curtis. And the new guy, your boy, Mark, Finbar Maley comes into the team finally. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It's been a very long time coming. It's funny. I thought they'd wait till he had a huge game in the VFL before he'd get a game like a
Hard to
5-goal
do that
game.
when you get buys every second week.
I reckon.
Yeah.
I wonder. I also wonder. Yeah, no, it doesn't help, does it? That's been frustrating.
Oh, it's rubbish.
I thought Darling would get rested off the 5-day break, and that would bring Maley.
Yeah.
That's why I actually put out next that I think he's going to play this week because of the 5-day break with Darling. But Darling's playing anyway, so that
it's a weird one, isn't it? I like him in the team. I think it's really positive. I don't think he's statistically been fantastic. The last few weeks he's had a couple of good games, and then his last game, which was God knows how long ago, he kicked 3 behinds, but. He's shown enough that we need to get him in.
He can take a grab. I mean, they've got to leave him there for 2 or 3 weeks. They can't just put him in for 1 week.
Playing him, Darling, and Larky is playing tall.
And
they replaced Curtis.
I thought Payne would come in, so I'm a bit surprised that hasn't happened now. But so,
because they don't have.
I think there's going to be a late. I still think Darling won't play. I think there's going to have to be a late out. I just can't work it out otherwise.
It's too tall. Like, how do you play Zurhaar, Larky, Darling,
and Dersma's the sub?
Well,
he's not the sub yet.
No, he's on a bench. He won't be the sub this week.
I will vomit. I will vomit if he is named sub. He did more in the 1 quarter he played last weekend.
He looks dangerous, doesn't he?
You see something. He shows more.
That's a very tall forward line with him and Zurhaar with a 3 tall. Like, it's just...
He might play up the ground, but the problem is they've brought Bailey. Because he lined up on the wing in the Carlton game at one stage.
There's wingmen everywhere.
Yeah, well, that's the other problem. You've got Scott. They're playing the Kirkshopper wing. They're playing Sullivan over wing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit confused. And Hardiman has to play. Like, if they make him a
if
sub...
he makes him sub or vomit, that would be even worse.
Arden Street will get burnt to the ground.
I don't want Phil to sub either. So who's the last one? Finbar.
Baylor Scott will be sub. No, I think Baylor Scott will be sub.
I don't think he's on the...
No, he's on the
bench.
bench. Yeah, no, he is. Yeah.
You reckon he'll be the sub?
Yeah, I think he'll be. I think he'll be the sub too.
I think it'll be Phillips. I don't like him as a sub. I don't like him as a sub.
No, because Wardlaw, he's got to come in.
Yeah, he's a good replacement for Wardlaw. So
I mean, we've got 30 midfielders in the team.
Yeah, that's true. Look, who knows?
There is an enemy that goes tag Barrett.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. We're very tall. It's a funny. I'm still confused.
We're trying to stretch their defense.
But I
think Darling's going to be a laid out. That's the only thing I can think is that Darling's not going to play. It's 5-day break. They might think if they're going to manage him at all this year, you would think this is the week to do it.
Because who have they got in their back line? They've got Jordan Ridley, medium size, but obviously
they've got Reed.
They've got Mackay. They've got Reed.
Shocker Mackay.
Is it just those 3?
Yeah, they're pretty tall.
But also, if you look at their forward line, so they've got Peter Wright. They've got Harry Jones playing off a wing. They've got Caddy.
Caddy's the dangerous one down there.
So they've got and Langford, who tears us apart. So they've got
who tears us apart?
Langford.
Oh yeah.
I think Archer will go to him. So I think that's a good matchup.
Or McDonald.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I reckon McDonald goes to Langford, and then you play Dawson and Coleman on the 2.
Hardiman was tough as nails last week. He's got to play.
No, he's going to be a player. Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be a gun player. He's tough. Like he ran back with the flight of the ball and punched. He saved a few of our key defenders last week.
Our defense
and Archer does the same stuff. Yeah. So those two were big.
It looks so much better. Week. Our defense looks so much better. And I think we're all in agreement that the 2 times that our defense has looked the best this year, and this is nothing about a logo core, but just assuming one of them's in the team. The 2 times our defense has looked best is when we had one key defender, Charlie Coleman, and Luke McDonald.
That's the third tall.
As a third tall. Now, on the weekend, Charlie played a defensive role, and I thought did a good job. In that earlier game, he played on a small and obviously intercepted. But I don't think the 3 tall defenders works. We're too slow. We look much better.
I agree. At quarter, bust admit though, at quarter time last week,
I was
I was
worried about
reading-
Georgiades.
I was ringing my Mafia Hitman contacts looking to have Caleb Daniel taken out because the mistakes that were coming out of the back line from him in the first quarter were just horrific. But he actually settled down and was much better after that.
Yeah,
But
and I
he's-
thought, did I, and this is just maybe to my eyes, McKercher seemed to play a little bit more off the half back line than he had in previous weeks. I saw a little bit more run from him, or at least it looked like his positioning was getting him up. Because O'Sullivan played more on the wing.
Yeah.
O'Sullivan definitely played further up the ground, less in defence.
McKercher got better as the game went on.
He had a couple of errors, but I'm not blaming them for him.
He got out. He got out. He got out in the open. I mean, he's copping a lot of criticism over his contested work at the moment, which is understandable because it hasn't been great.
It's all right. He still did more than Darcy Tucker.
But of course, but his line.
He did more than
Darcy Tucker.
We need his speed is so important in that side. It's just he's confident. I mean, this is what happens when people's confidence down. Their contested work always looks bad because they just. It's like it's not because they're scared. It's just because they're not playing at their best, and it ends up not looking great. It's particularly that type of player is already an outside player. It always looks worse. But he does need to work on his contested stuff.
What it does mean with the changes that we've made, that if you look from a tools perspective, we're effectively saying Reed has to go to Larkey or Darling. Mackay has to go to the other.
Malley, probably.
Then all of a sudden, you've got Jordan Ridley, who they do not want to have to. He can play one-on-one, but they want to free him up. He has to play on the third tall. And then you've got Zerha. Their other defenders from memory is probably your Andy McGrath, who plays in smalls. You've got who's that?
We don't have any bloody smalls.
Who runs off the back line.
They got that Jackson Fry from Brisbane.
Oh, yeah, he plays on smalls, mediums.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Mason Redmond, whatever the bloody.
Redmond's all right.
I hate him. He always plays well against us.
Yeah, most players do.
He, but they don't have anyone else to go on the fourth. It means Redmond or someone is going to have to go to Zerha. So I think we'll try to stretch them.
Yeah, well, that's no doubt. So I've assumed by the selections that they've been relying on intercept marking in their back line, and we're trying to make sure that's going to be a problem for them. But the question is, if it hits the ground, are we going to be able to win possession?
No, well, that's the problem, isn't it?
So
should be able to get that. Intercept marks. Where do they rate for intercept marks? No, they're crap.
Well, that makes no sense then.
The bottom is North, then St Kilda, then Essendon, West Coast Sydney. So
maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe we think they've got a real weakness in the air, and so we're going to try and win the game by marking.
To be fair, Ridley missed a fair chunk of the year, and he's obviously their interceptor.
So maybe they think Malley could do some real damage. In my view, could kick 10 to 15 goals. So. That's the only thing. If they're not already good at intercept, then we must see that as a weakness. And so we've gone hard to try and see if we can win it in the air. I mean, what else? There's no other reasoning that makes sense. I mean, Larky's not. He's okay. Obviously, he's a contested mark. He's a clever forward, but that's not his strength.
I'll tell you other things that they're bad at. They're equal with us for pressure acts in the bottom three in the comp. Tackles inside 50, which, by the way, we're now up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're 10th. That's a
huge jump.
Essendon second last.
Well, last weekend must have been our best. Surely that was our best performance of tackles inside 50 for a long time.
Yeah,
I think your tackles inside 50 have been reasonable this year. So.
Well, that's
I did see something before we joined there from Champion Data where they showed speed in terms of teams moving the ball. Now that apparently this year they've actually got the ability to see how quickly a team transitions the ball from end to end. And Carlton were the quickest in the comp. The two slowest, North Melbourne and Essendon.
That's at least
where the two, by a fair margin, I think he said, but we're the two slowest in the comp of transitioning the ball. So it could be a very slow game.
Daniel has not helped one iota in that regard. That's disappointing.
Just on that, Harry Sheasel. Now, it looks like his role is going to be off the halfback flank. They've pushed him out of the midfield. I actually don't mind it because I don't think him and LDU work well in the midfield together. I think it's too much of an outside midfield. What are your thoughts on that, Jesse? I'll get your thoughts on Harry Sheezel's role for now, and do you see him playing there for the next few weeks at least?
Yeah, so look, I don't mind it from a confidence perspective. I think that he's much cleaner off the half-back line in terms of his ability to dispose the ball this year. I'm talking just purely based on his form this year. There is a part of me that says, for all this rubbish about him playing ahead of the ball, we still have a problem distributing the ball off the half-back line that we haven't solved yet. So if he solves that problem, and other players are stepping up the ground, because he doesn't need to play forward of the ball if Paul Curtis is dominating, if Wardlaw is dominating. Yeah. You've got the luxury of playing him off the half-back line. So I think people are just throwing up a fuss. Now, what I will say,
he and Caleb Daniel both can't play on the half-back line, surely.
I reckon he can, because I actually think he's a decent defender, one-on-one, Chesil. The one problem I do have, this is where I will give him a knock. This year, he's ranked in like the lowest 10 in the competition for meters gained per disposal. So his meters gained per disposal is one of the worst in the comp.
Well, that won't help off the back line.
Well, I'm assuming that stat is taking a lot of his forward of centre stuff in. Now, Corns is right when it comes to the fact that his goal assists this year are way down. He was up to 1 goal assist a game last year. He's at 0.1 this year. So score involvement's irrelevant. Corns can harp on about that. Oh, well, coming off the half-back line, his score involvements are low. North Melbourne, what do you want?
How's Connor Rosie's score involvements off the half-back flank? What a joke.
I think they're actually good.
I wish I hadn't said that. All right, let's move on.
I haven't checked that, but to the eye, I think he's actually done it. He's kicked some goals off there, so that's probably a start. Yeah. I think, look, there is things he needs to improve on, absolutely, 100%. But we still have a problem distributing the ball off the half-back line, and I think that it solves the problem. Would you rather him down there than a McKercher or a O'Sullivan distributing the ball? Yes, I would. I think he can defend better than McKercher, and he's more experienced than O'Sullivan. So I don't mind him down there. But in an ideal world, Wardlaw's out this week. I like him in the midfield mix, but I agree with Dan. For some reason, him and LDU just don't work as a midfield mix. So it means you're playing him in the middle with Phillips and probably a Parker. That mix just probably works really well because he plays the outside role, and then you've got 2 defensive inside midfielders. It's going to be interesting to see how we wield that this week because Parker is probably over the last 3 weeks, and I'm not looking at any stats to say this, being one of our best players.
Oh, easy.
He was fantastic last week. Just as a leader last week, he was awesome.
Huge. I think, he had the cracked ribs. People criticise him at the start of the year. I think he's been massive.
Poor Phillips will be thinking, I better have a great first quarter or I'll be subbed out and that'll be the end of me again. I mean,
if he's not a sub. But, yeah, no, look, I think you've got him and you've got Phillips who are inside mids. You've got Simkin. Well, you can get to him separately, but they're all your inside types. And then you have your LDU. And realistically, Sheezel. I think Sheezel will get some midfield time because I think there is a lot of half-back options in our team.
I worry about our chances to win this without Wardlaw.
Powell's what's an interesting one, Powell. There's still a lot of people potting him after the game against Port Adelaide. I'll give you some stats for Powell. That is the one that I did want to touch on. So he had a 15.4 player rating. So he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was the 6th highest rated player on the ground. According to Supercoach, he was maybe the 8th highest. He scored over 100 Supercoach points.
Yeah.
His centre bounce attendance was 39%. So
that was 12 for the game.
LDU, 81%. Luke Parker, 71%.
He's become a bit of he's one of our biggest whipping boys at the moment.
39%. So that says to me he's in there just over 1/3 of the time. The other 2/3 he's playing on the flank. He's playing outside. I actually think that he looks much better. I can't believe I'm saying this, but because I thought that was very strong in being an inside midfielder. I actually think his best position is either A on a flank or B on the wing. I think he is much more effective playing on the outside. That's just the stats show that. I think every game that he has played, not as the predominant midfielder, he's had more impact.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. I think he had 12 CBAs for the game. I actually don't mind him getting that many.
Get 1/3, so he's still contributing, but he had 5 score score involvement, so that's pretty decent.
Yeah, not bad.
I think he was pretty decent from a lot of the stats from memory. I think
19 touches, 11 in the second half, 9 contested.
So 19 touches, but I mean, it's the impact with them, I think, is the main thing. As I said, like him and Simpkin had the same amount of touches, but Simpkin got 53 Supercoach points and 2.1 player rating versus Powers 15.4 and 101. So, disposal efficiency was 78.9%, and he kicked it 11 times, which is exactly the same as Simpkin, actually, 11 kicks and 8 handballs. But he went at 25% almost higher. He had 9 contested possessions, the same as Simpkin, but he played much more on the outside. He had more ground ball gets. He had more clearances than Simpkin. He had 7 playing on the outside. So he played 1/3 of the CBAs, but he was our second highest clearance getter. So that means he's coming in for the stoppage clearances. But I've got no issue with him. I think 30 to 40% is his mark. You give him that many CBAs, and the rest he plays on the flanks. And I think he's a much better player.
Speaking about whipping boys, Mark, the captain. Now he had 17 CBAs. Every year at pre-season we want to push him out of the midfield, and within about 3 or 4 rounds when we're struggling, they push him back in slowly. Do you think that's his best position going forward? He got 5 clearances from 17 CBAs. Obviously, he's coming in for a lot of criticism, not from Kane Corns. We'll go past that, but this is coming from our own supporters, that he pushes the ball far too much. Is that warranted, do you think?
Yeah, well, the butchering the balls is an issue. I think I get frustrated with that. I think he again, talking of whipping boys, he definitely gets criticised more than that it's fair.
Same disposal efficiency as Parker, just as an FYI.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's unfair. Sometimes when he does butcher it, it looks really bad. So it's just a straight up turnover. That when he seems to do it is when at the time where he's not under pressure. That's why it upsets supporters. Where we've got control of the ball, we're about to enter forward 50, and he just inexplicably it gets turned over. Which I think that's what gets him the heavy criticism. But those mistakes aside, he's still a very good player for us, and he's a selfless player. He would probably do more defensive stuff as a midfielder than any other player in the side. Hence why he's one of the main reasons why he's captain of the club. So we don't really see that. Like you don't go to a game and just watch someone's defensive running all day and all the stuff they're doing.
I think the main knock on him was he only had 1 tackle.
Yeah, okay. But
that's a rarity. You are absolutely right.
There's a lot more than defensive play than just relaying the tackles. But there's some guys run 15 Ks and get 10 possessions, but they're playing an absolutely crucial role because they're covering ground to cut off opportunity inside the corridor and all that sort of stuff. And unless you're right into that sort of level of detail, which I'm absolutely not, it's hard to understand it. But he's so highly respected by the playing group and the coaches. You know that he's doing a lot of stuff that's selfless within the side. So I think if it was about what's best for him, he'd play as a midfielder, pure midfielder for sure. But he can play a role that not many others can't, which is that high half-forward defensive, high hard running position, which is not particularly high possession, but it's important. So I think that'll be more the case with him. I think, and with Curtis out this week, he's probably going to play on the forward line even more and do some defensive stuff down there. I would have thought, particularly now that they brought Phillips in. But we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm not a critic of Simpkin. I think he's a really important player. I do wish some of the clangers are nasty. I wish he'd clean that up a bit, but. Yeah, I think he's an important player.
Similar question to what you just asked. Are you surprised with how much? Because I mean, if you look at the CBAs, like you pointed out, I mean, Simpkin was what? He had that. He was what, our fourth highest? Yeah, so Sherry, LDU, Parker, Simpkin. So on a percentage basis, he had 55, which was the same as Wardlaw.
Yeah.
Which is still, Parker had 71%. Are you surprised with, based on the weekend, and it might be one of the reasons why we were so competitive, are you surprised with how high the CBA is for Luke Parker? 71%. So
not after the smash we got from against Carlton.
I don't know what it was again. I don't have it up against Carlton. I just pretend that game never happened.
Clarkson was furious about our contested work against Carlton, and
he
knows what he's going to get with Parker.
So LDU, they're not moving. He had 81%, but he's always getting that. Are you surprised with 71% from Luke Parker?
No, not up again.
I think we need another big body with Wardlaw in there.
Because Wardlaw had obviously the 55%, but he only played 60% of the game time, which is going to be the case for a while he builds up his load. Would you, so based on this, Phillips coming in this week, assume that he's not the sub? How do you break up the CBAs this week? Does Phillips just take an exact amount for Wardlaw? Because he will play more game time, probably, or maybe. Would you give him the exact? If we were saying it was the same amount of CBAs as the Port game, would you give him the exact amount that we gave Wardlaw, or would you give him, for example, more than that?
I think he probably gets somewhere between Wardlaw and Powell. So it's 12 to 17. Let's say, roughly that number, which is, how much is that? 55% or something like that, or 50%.
Yeah.
I think it's a like-for-like replacement. One player that doesn't seem to be getting into midfield, and might be an opportunity this week, Jesse, Cameron Zurhaar. I wouldn't mind him going in for 3 or 4 CBAs, especially if the ball's not coming in to the forward line. We talked him up in the first year when Clarkson came down. Yeah, we're going to give him spells in the midfield. I think Frank might have even mentioned Paul Curtis. Obviously, he's not in. Get him in for just to throw something up, a big body that can smash a few bodies. Especially they've got they're a bit of an outside midfield. Too.
That's where they tear you up. It's a bit of a surprise. It's a bit of a surprise in terms of what we've done when things aren't working. I think the Carlton one is, an obvious one where why are you not trying other things out? Why, I've talked about it. Why have you not giving McKercher a CBA? Why you throw O'Sullivan in there for one CBA? I mean, they're both midfielders. That's what they are. Why don't you try them out? Zurhaar, give him one. There's a bit of reluctance, it seems, to try players out in the midfield. It's just, I know they've got so many, so it's like, why would you bother? But you've got to try something else sometimes because they are all similar to a degree. While you're bringing in something a bit different. Because you are right. If you look at Essendon's midfield, they've got Durham, who's hard-nosed on the inside. Tackles will probably play a defensive tagging role, although they've got Setterfield in there now, and he's probably playing more of a tagging role. So they've got 2 defensive shutdown options who are both great defensive shutdown options. So they play your inside. They brought Sardis back, who will play more outside. The main one is
Shields come in, hasn't he?
They've rested Shields, so Sardis comes in to play that role. They've got Hobbs, who's an inside midfielder, but then they've got Merritt. They're very similar to us in terms of they do win a lot of ball on the inside. They probably are more contested than people give them granted for. And then they use Merritt to distribute it. So Merritt's their LDU and does a better job than LDU, obviously, because Merritt is a really, really good player. So there is a part of me that says if you shut down Merritt, you shut down a big part of their midfield. But they do bring players. Most teams do just throw the dice and play at least one odd player in the midfield, here and there. And so it is a little weird that we don't try stuff like that. Chuck a Zurhaar in there, just try something different. Especially when we were losing to Carlton. That's just weird for me. If you're in the Port,
they're a juggernaut though, Jesse.
Well, they are now. We've got them in the form. If you like in the Port game where you're right in it, you're not going to move away from what you're doing well. But
we'll see what happens. Mark, what are your thoughts on the midfield mix? Obviously, Phillips comes in. Does he play a defensive role? Maybe on a Zach Merritt, who's very important to Essendon's engine room. Or do you maybe? I'm not so sure. Does Phillips start on an interchange bench and they maybe give Powell a few more CBAs?
if Will Phillips is going to play in the starting 22, is he named on the bench or is he? Yeah, he's named on the bench, isn't he?
Is he? I didn't.
I think he is.
I think he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if he's
Yeah,
not
he
the
is, yeah.
if he's not the sub, so there's two reasons I think he's playing. He's either starting and he's playing on merit, or he's the sub and if merit gets out of control, he's coming on to play on merit. I think Merritt's been dominating this year, and he's when Essendon's in the game, it's normally as much because of him as anyone. So I think that's the main reason he's been brought in. Not, I mean, Wardlaw's out, which is obviously, but I just think they're very different players. So, and as we've discussed, there's enough mids in that side that they could have covered for him without any trouble. So, and he was out before Wardlaw came back. So I think they brought him back specifically to take out Merritt, and Merritt's been causing carnage this year. Nearly, he'd be right up there in the coaches' votes and everything. He's been absolutely dominating. So I think that definitely that's why he's playing.
No, a lot of people have come into the chat tonight, but yeah, sorry, I can't get through your comments. The podcast has gone a fair way. Mark won't shut up tonight, so sorry about that, everyone. So, no, I'm just joking, Mark. Always good to have your opinion. Just one more before we move on to predictions and possible match winners. Jesse, Caleb Daniel, 200th game. This feels a bit weird. We've had 300 games from two players that have barely been at the club. Now we've got a 200-game player that's only played his 8th game for the club. Any fond memories of Caleb Daniel in North Melbourne jumper?
Not yet.
North Melbourne jumper.
Yeah.
No.
A few turnovers here and there.
Yeah.
The kickouts.
Look, he's been. I think you got to take it all with a grain of salt. Yeah, like there's a leadership element to this in terms of what he's adding to the back line in terms of directing, but also what he'd be doing off the field. What he'd be doing, with the training standards. There's all these other things you need to take into account. He's not the first one dropped in that back line. There's other people who needed to be dropped. So while, yes, we would like his kicking to clean, he's probably not used to looking up the ground and seeing nobody moving and having no choice but to vomit. He's probably rattled because at the Dogs, they actually know what they're doing most of the time. So, and they have leading key forwards. So, look, it's going to take some time. Has been okay, has had some decent moments, has had some crappy moments. That just is what it is. But I mean, look, he's been a fantastic player, a premiership player, had a great career at the Dogs, obviously. Did some really, really good things there. And yeah, look, I still think he has a big part to play in our future.
He's still got a few more years. Yeah.
Well, people saying that we should have kept the pick. Yeah, it was a great draft. Yes, it would have probably been a good kid. Yeah, they probably would have come in and done something, sure. But we didn't need more kids. We needed leadership and people to come in and add some experience. That's what we needed.
Well, I think the question now is if we didn't trade for him, we would have kept pick 26, which meant we would have got Matt Whitlock. So yeah, and we wouldn't have had to do that trade with Richmond. That's a
bit of obviously. I mean, there's a bit of hindsight there in terms.
Yeah, of course.
On the day, they probably thought that they would have been able to get a deal done with future picks on the day. And I'm still not. I'm still while it's going to look really crappy if and when we finish bottom 3 and Richmond end up with pick 2 and 3 in next year's draft and end up picking up Buddy Franklin and Chris Judd. And we're sitting here looking like idiots. I'm sure, which will happen. I can still completely understand the mindset of we've had enough. We need to bring in a key position player. We're kicking this down the road. And this year, you can trade multiple years in front. You can do all this different stuff. We're going to have 2 second rounders in a draft that's heavily compromised. So most of the first round is going to get absolutely gutted with father, sons, and academies. With the remaining match, there's going to be some players that drop through. And I'm still confident that if we really wanted to reach, those 2 can be converted to a first rounder for points. So we've got some options there. I still think you can only judge that pick after you see what Matt Whitlock becomes, and 2, what we're able to do with the Richmond pick. I think that's when you need to judge it. Although, and I'll say this, and I have a soft spot for him because he was a North fan, there is a part of me that absolutely hates, but also loves watching Luke Traynor go about it every week because he looks really, really good down there for Richmond. And being a North fan, would have loved him in North colours because he's playing every single game and he's looking really good doing it. So maybe they'll keep bringing Bolter in, and then he'll get cross that he's getting dropped, and he'll come to North. But he would have been a nice step because he's the type who could have played immediately, which Whitlock just needs a bit of time.
Yeah, I think with Trainer, he slipped down a fair way in the draft. They had him in the top 5, top 6 at one stage.
We would have taken him if he was going to go top 5. And he ended up drifting all the way out to, what was it, 20? It was 21
something like 19 or 20, which was a bit crazy.
I would have loved him. I think the other thing North fans are nervous about as well is that we picked Matt Whitlock, and there was a perception that there were some other tools there who may have been a better fit for where we want to go. But,
apparently his brother's supposed to be better than him, so Jack Whitlock, I think.
Yeah, the one who went to Port. Yeah. He's meant to be more of a dedicated forward. I think it was a bit of a, we don't know if we need forwards or backs. I heard Will Dawson's training with the forwards again, so...
Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing half the time. Well, they never play, so maybe they just got to throw them around.
I think it's a part of, they've got Logue, they've got Griffin, they've got a call. They're playing backline. Finn Marr's gone up to the seniors, so we're going to put Will Dawson up forward, which I hate. But what are you going to do about it?
No, not much you can do about it. They know a lot more than we do. They see a lot more than we do. That's for sure. Mark, might be a good omen. The two players that had 300 games at the club came from other clubs, and we had our 2 best games of the year. Could it be a hat trick with Caleb Daniel?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that's going to have as much bearing on the outcome as the fact Georgie Wardlaw and Curtis are out of the side. That to me is a bit of a nasty blow. Probably our 2 best players at the moment.
I'm hoping it doesn't affect the psyche too much. But
they're probably the 2 biggest barometers we've got on the side, those 2. So I think it's a very, very difficult thing to overcome, but I'm hopeful that the group got a lot out of last week, and the short turnaround might not be a bad thing. They would have been well rested, obviously, and they would have trained a lot this week. And I think they've timed it well. If we're going to lose a couple of important players, probably a good time to bring Finbar in. He's an unbelievably popular player around the club. So you can see they got a big lift out of that today, and he's something very different. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it's probably the right timing to take a risk like that, given we haven't got a lot to lose. Curtis and Wardlaw going out really hurt. So we need some X factor.
Yeah,
we need some X factor. I'm just a bit disappointed Payne's not playing as well, because I just think we needed extra pressure on our forward line. But
I think
excuse me, but.
And I'm in the middle on this. I'm still a little bit negative on Constanti. I know a lot of people are saying that there's a lot of stuff he's doing and that things happen when he's around. I know people are saying that, and maybe I'm just blind, but he's not tackling. He's not doing anything offensively.
He's pressuring pretty well.
Yeah, but I'd rather a player who pressures and kicks goals.
Yeah,
I actually don't think he's best 22 in our team. I don't have him in my team.
We can't afford for him not to play. We just don't have any other pressure small.
Geordie Payne.
Yeah, well, I agree. I would have had them both playing this week. I would be dropping Constanti at the moment. No way.
Well, I wouldn't have this week, but yeah. Anyway, I was unpopular when I mentioned that in my team.
Yeah, I did see that. They came at you, Jesse.
Everyone loves. Anyway, yeah.
I was going to say something.
He has a crack, and he gets in the face of the opposition, which I think supporters like as well.
Yeah, but I need you to do something on the field. Just a bit of a nothing player at the moment. Like, if we can't afford to have a player on the field who's not doing anything.
Jeez,
what Mark?
You're the Kane Corns of this podcast.
Mark, what do you think of his goal celebration against Carlton, being 75 points down and decided to shush the crowd?
Yeah. I think it worked. I think it did shush the crowd. They were so shocked that someone who's getting humiliated like that would do that. I think that shocked. I think Dwayne Russell couldn't stop talking about it for the whole of last week. He was so distressed by the fact someone who's getting annihilated would shush the crowd.
He's got a kick for the game, and he's decided to shush the crowd. And
he's averaging 8.6 disposals. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you shush the crowd if you're getting 8 points?
And he's averaging 0.7 tackles inside 50. And
Another reason to shush the crowd.
Mm.
It was an unusual act. Let's put it that way. It was I think if he had his time over again, he might not have shushed the crowd at that point in the game.
Well, we'll see this week. If we're getting smashed and he decides to do it again.
God knows what he'll do if he ever kicks the winning goal in a game.
Oh, God, he might jump in the crowd.
Yeah.
There's a bit of Tom Papley about him, isn't there?
I don't mind that attitude.
Well, minus
we
the
need more
ability
of
to
it.
kick goals.
Yeah.
Well,
Albeit the timing of it was a bit bizarre, but we need more of that attitude. And
The attitude is good. I like the
Yeah.
attitude. That part's good. But Jordy Payne would give you that attitude.
yeah, Geordie Payne's got more of an attitude and he'll back it up.
he'll play soon, Geordie Payne. There's no. He has to
watch
play
us roll him out next week against Brisbane. We got Brisbane next week. It's a 10-day. It's a 10-day break. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Thursday?
Yeah, I think we got.
I guarantee Wardlaw will play against Brisbane. He's being managed. They don't
Well,
want
it's a 10-day break. It's Mother's Day down in Tassie. He'll 100% play. He will lose by.
Oh, what a great game for him to play. You're right. He will play in Tassie for sure.
Yeah, 4:40 next Sunday. So
They're giving us a long break.
Try and go for back-to-back wins. So
we're going to need a lot of things to go our way to win tomorrow night, given the 2 outs we've got. But I just hope they carry on the same attitude they had from quarter time onwards against Port.
I'll get each of your match winners. Jesse, who do you think could be a match winner tomorrow for us?
I'll try and think of someone a bit different.
Costanti?
Yeah. No, look, realistically, I think one of the forwards is going to have to kick an absolute bag. I think Larky will redeem himself and he'll have a big one. I'd love Payne to have one. I think Payne will roam up the ground. Sorry, Payne. What am I talking about? Finbar. I reckon Finbar will lope up the ground a fair bit and be able to play a bit higher because he's a great mark.
He'll take mark of the year tomorrow night. There's nothing sure.
Well, there we go. Put 100 on that. But he'd be a chance of doing it. He won't die wondering, that's for sure.
No.
In all honesty, LDU needs to play.
Yeah,
he has been under par. He's been terrible.
He's been average. Yeah.
We haven't had a $1.3 million a year game out of him yet.
Put it this way: in the last 5 rounds of last year, he was ranked in the top 10 players in the comp. This year, he must be ranked in the bottom 10. His game on the weekend.
I think he's around the 100 mark. Yeah, I think it's around 100 mark. I heard the other day.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like his disposal is better. We're not going to get into LDU. We'll spend another.
He's your match winner.
He's spending too much time looking at his property investments and the stock market. He needs to focus on his footy again.
I just think that if he can play a game like we know he can, that's how we'll win. Because we need someone to play what Wardlaw did against Port, which is explosive, hit the contest hard. He's got the ability to do that if he wants to do it.
Such a pity he's not playing this week. It really is. But
maybe a few people have suggested, which they're not going to do now, that they have 10 tall forwards, but they've said play Sheasel in the role that we drafted him for. Put him in the forward. You put him in there and put Sheasel's paddock.
Yeah. The problem is he's not getting 25 touches, so he's only getting a handful.
If you kick 4 goals, would you care about the 25 touches? I wouldn't.
No.
If they put him if they did that, put him at full foot. I mean, Corns would brag about that for the next 20 years.
He's going to come up with something anyway.
Not if he kicks some goals.
I'd rather he goes down back and pads out in 40 possessions just to piss.
Yeah, it takes all the kick outs.
There's a part of me that goes, it is interesting that we haven't given him more time as a deep forward because that's what he was drafted as. And I don't think we've explored that enough because of how good he's done up the ground. So instead of resting him off the half back line, there's a part of me that goes, why wouldn't you play him as a deep forward?
I don't disagree with that.
But because he kicked 40 goals in his draft year, I harp on about it. He looked like a clone of Toby Green. He was a freak at forward line.
I agree.
And we haven't.
I think they will at some stage. Yeah, no, I agree.
We're not going to do it this week because there's 17 forwards.
No,
that's probably been half the problem.
Yeah.
The imbalance of the team has been questioned every week. And
I hope Dersma's not the sub this week. I'd love to. But
I told you, Parkman or Dersma are the sub or vomit. And Phillips, I won't be happy. So
I think Phillips will be the sub, actually.
Yeah, I do as well, and that makes me sick. pretty angry.
Bailey, Scott, or Phillips will be the sub. I think it'll be one of those two.
Darcy Tucker laid in sub, I'm hearing.
Laid in for Nick Larkey or something.
Jack Darling.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, possibly. You never know. Who's your match winner? Finbar Melly?
Yeah, you don't even need to ask.
All right, I won't ask. All right, before I let you go, boys, final prediction, Jesse?
Oh, God. You know what? I would have said a win if the two players who hadn't gone out had gone out. And even with Wardlaw in, I would have said, you know what, line ball. I honestly can see this game. If I'll say Bombers by 3 goals. And I would be happy with some of the outs. They've got some outs as well, to be fair to them. But I'd be happy if we were able, especially their 2 ruckmen, they're playing a fossil. But I would be happy if we were able to keep it under 3 goals. But it is much like Mark has said about mindset. If we go in there with a mindset like we did against Port, we could go anywhere from winning to losing by a few goals. If we go in there like we did against Carlton, I'm going to be lucky to see you at the game. All the season. If we
don't know what we're getting.
If we lose by 10 goals plus, I'm done. Don't ask me back here. I'm done. I'm going to.
Oh, don't worry. I'll be messaging you to come back. Don't worry, Jesse. You'll be back. Mark, your final prediction?
We have to smash them in contested footy to have any hope, I think, this week, because I'm very worried about Wardlaw and Curtis out. But Finbar could just clunk the crap out of the whole game and kick 10 goals. So,
and who's he on? Who do they put to me?
I wonder what odds I can get on North winning and Finbar kicking 5+ goals. That could be interesting. I'll have to have a look.
I'll tell you that right now.
It'll be juicy. I'll tell you now. It'll be juicy odds. You won't. I'll be drunk for a month if that happens. You won't see me. You won't be able to find me if that occurred. I just want us to be super competitive. I don't want to turn on TV. Obviously, I'm in New South Wales. I don't want to watch because I'll be having a bottle of wine before the start of the game to get myself primed. And I'll be expecting a competitive performance. I don't want to sit through another Good Friday, given it's a Thursday night for the club. There'll be a lot of supporters desperate for us to not repeat what happened. So I'm just more fingers crossed that it's a really highly competitive performance because the spotlight's going to be on the club again. So this is the players' chance to make up for Good Friday. So I really hope they take it.
Yeah, certainly.
I can't put a bet on him. He doesn't exist on Sportsbet. They haven't recognised him yet, Mark. They're trying to.
That's a write your own ticket. So it could be a couple of 100 to 1. Well, it would be a couple of 100 to 1. What am I talking about?
Well, Jack Darling's playing 100 to 1 for 5 goals. For 6 goals, sorry. For 5, he's playing 26. So probably $30.
All right, set for retirement based on what could happen tomorrow night.
Set for retirement.
That would be paying 100 to 1 plus North playing 280.
I reckon North to win into Finbar Ballin to kick 5+ goals, just as a multi on its own, would be about 250 to 1.
Finbar will kick 6 goals and we'll lose by a point, Mark, just to let you know. So.
Wouldn't that be? That'd be bad. I'm actually now going to have that bet because otherwise, if it happens,
you can't bet on him, mate. He's not coming up as a player.
There'll be one of them will have it for sure.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, boys, it's been a long podcast. It's been a lot of talk. About Kane Corns early and a few other things. I appreciate you lasting the course. Mark, it was good to hear from you again. I haven't had you on for a while. You went missing. I think it took me a while to find you, but glad you're back. And
he was hanging out with Bomber Boss.
Well, that.
Yeah, he's hanging out with Bomber Boss.
In his donut.
You're having a few wines with Bomber Boss. You're good, mate. So, that's fair enough. Mark, I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure I'll chat to you soon.
Good on you, boys. Thank you.
Jesse, really appreciate you coming on as well, mate. And I'm sure I'll chat to you soon as well.
Sounds good.
No worries. And thank you to all you listeners as well. Mark has disappeared. I'll try and be back maybe Sunday evening this week to go through the game. Give thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your mates, do all that fun stuff. That's it from me. Bye for now and go Roos.